Hi guys, it's Kath. Today I'm going to show you how I designed, printed, and assembled this miniature version of Freddy's Pizzeria from Five Nights at Freddy's. I made this set for my collection of figurines from Youtooz that I just got. This pizzeria is the perfect backdrop to showcase these figurines. I usually hand build these, but today's video is going to focus on the design, modeling, and 3D printing process that I use. Let's get started. Whenever I start a new project, I pore over any reference photos that I can find. This helps me plan my design. I begin by sketching a rough outline of what I want to build on paper. This gives me an idea of the overall look and the main features of the build. It also helps me get a visual of the colors I'll need and the size that I want. I focus in on the main features that capture the essence and character of the set. That includes the sign, the awning with lights, the bright roof, and the checkerboard pattern on the front. Since I know I want to add lights to this building, this is the step where I plan how to add it. Since I'll be using this to stage the figurines, I make sure to scale it to the appropriate size. Once I have the outline of the build laid out, it's time to start the actual modeling process. I'm using Tinkercad here, which is free and super easy to use. Since this building structure is made up of mostly rectangles, it's easy enough to do in Tinkercad and not require more advanced software. I start my design focusing on the front center panel. It's a rectangular prism with a cutout for a center door. Each side is a rectangular column adorned with brickwork. I'm showing you how I do this on my iPad, but you can also use any desktop computer. In fact, that might be easier. Now it's time to print this panel that we just created. I print this on my Bamboo Lab X1C because it's extremely reliable and fast. Since I'll be painting this entire pizzeria, I'm not concerned with the filament color this is printed with. I had an extra roll of this red color and I just wanted to use it up, so that's what I chose. I paint this entire piece with a base layer of white acrylic paint. Next step are the two side panels that connect to this middle piece that we just made. These are also just rectangular panels with a column of brick on one side. When I make models of existing structures, I analyze it for the main shapes that I see without focusing in too much on the tiny details for now. Those can be added on after we get the main shapes down. The roof is made up of flat rectangles with bands that run across one side. A really cool feature in Tinkercad is that you can add one stick and then make copies of it all along the entire panel at the same intervals. If I were hand building this, I would just use some flat sheets of wood with some square dowels glued on top. If you recall, that's exactly what I did on my large dollhouse build. Since my printer is only so big, I print several of these panels and then glue them together. Again, don't worry about the color. When I glue plastic pieces together, I use E6000 glue. Then I glue the roof to the front panels at a 45-degree angle. I print several more of these that are shorter in height for the lower roof line. Next are these columns with this arch design on top. These add a lot of architectural interest to the building, but will also help hold up our roof. These pieces are even shorter and they go on the top arch of the roof line. Now it's time to paint this entire set. For the main structure of the set, I use this acrylic paint by Liquitex in the color Unbleached Titanium. This is one of my most used colors. I'll also be using it for the awning itself. This step is so therapeutic. For the roof, I'm using this acrylic paint by Liquitex in the color Bright Aqua Green. It is so satisfying peeling off the painter's tape and seeing the crisp lines that are left behind. I deepened the aqua paint with a little bit of blue to paint the pyramids on the front panels. You can freehand this part or use some masking tape to help you get crisp lines. I added on several coats of each color to get a really deep opaque look. For the area on top of the awning, I'm using this acrylic paint by Arteza in the color Crimson Red. I also use this color to cover the topmost areas of the side front panels. The area on the bottom of the front panels will be a deep muted purple that I made by mixing purple and gray acrylic paints. Right above the purple area, we'll need 2 rows of the iconic checkerboard pattern. You could paint this area individually square by square, but an easier way is just to print them. I found this simple image online and printed it on regular printer paper. Cut them out and glue them to the front panels. My favorite way of gluing paper to ensure a really solid hold and make sure I don't get any bubbles is to paint on the glue and then press the paper on. Then I add more glue on top with a paintbrush. Here are the pieces for the front doors. They look like rectangular frames because that's what they are. I printed the frame in white and the insert in clear filament. Install the insert using a drop of super glue. And the doors are ready to be put on its hinges. The hinges will just be pieces of wire that attach the doors to the front panel. From the reference photos, the awning for this pizzeria has this rounded front and lights underneath. It reminds me of the awning that you often see in front of old classic movie theaters. To create it, I use a combination of a cylinder and a cube. I stretch both of those out to make them more like an oval and rectangle. I cut out the interior area to ensure I have space for the lighting that I'll add inside. And of course, we'll need some holes in this awning where the light will shine through underneath. And to close off this area, I just create a copy of this shape and make it into a thin panel. I push some eyelets into those holes to give the lights a bit more dimension. Now they really look like can lights. Installing the lights themselves is pretty easy. I'm just using these cheap fairy lights with a battery pack. I used 2 lights per hole to make them each as bright as I could. I taped those lights down with some electrical tape. You can also use glue for a more permanent hold. Once all the lights are taped down, you can glue on the lid. Of course, this cannot be Freddy's Pizzeria without the iconic Freddy sign. To make my life easy, I first find an image of the sign. I import this image into Photoshop and remove most of the details. I'm really just looking for the shape of the sign. Once I have that, I convert it into an SVG file that I can import back into Tinkercad. This is a really easy trick I like to use when I want an extremely close replica of what I'm designing. Just like the awning, this piece will be made up of two parts. One that has an opening where I can install the lights, and then a back plate to close it off. I also made this clear insert for the inside, but this is completely optional. For the actual image that will go on top of the sign, I print out the reference picture that I used in the same scale as the plastic sign. Use a bit of glue to glue that image to the sign. To install the lights inside, I simply roll the string of fairy lights up to fit inside. This iconic sign sits directly on top of the awning and pulls this entire set together. One last thing I'll add to this set is a wire fence. Just this small addition gives the building a slightly darker undertone as a place that you shouldn't be at. Add a small garbage bag to really amp up the feeling that you shouldn't be here. This part is completely optional, but I decided to add some pops of color on the brickwork to make it really stand out. This gives the piece a bit more depth when looking at it from afar. Now we can add in our figurines. We have Vanessa, Doug, Steve, and Mike. This is the first time I've gotten figurines from Youtooz that are of actual human characters, and I'm very impressed with the design. The craftsmanship is remarkable, as is with all the other Youtooz figurines that I've gotten in the past. Their attention to detail really rivals my own. Vanessa is standing on a checkered tile floor which matches the front of our building beautifully. I'm also a huge fan of this specific figurine of Yellow Rabbit. You can take off its head and exchange it for Steve, who is underneath the costume. This is so creative and such a fun use of a figurine. They really tie this entire set together. The plastic of the building and the plastic of the figurines tie together so well that you would think they came together as a set. I love how this turned out, and it looks so beautiful on my bookshelf with the figurines that it was designed to show off. I hope you enjoy watching my process of creating miniature replicas from popular culture through 3D design and printing. I also hope it's inspired you to create something yourself.